What's the font called? Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jasuranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasuranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janna Bhallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivardhari Jasuranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasuranandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Sri Radha Madhava ki Sri Radha Giridhari ki Jai Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shodhara Srimad Divine Grace of Vaicharana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Jaja Shodhara Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Brinda ki Jai ISKCON Foundacharya BBT Foundacharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Samveda Bhakti ki Jai Go Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories, CC Guru and Sri Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Gauravani Vacharane Nivashesha Shunyavare Vaskachade Shatarane. Open that door just a little bit. So So this morning we're reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th canto, 7th chapter, where Prahlad learned in the womb. Text 21. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Swarnam Yata Gravasu Hemakaraha Kshetreshu Yogais Tad Abhigya Abnuyat Kshetreshu Deheshu Tathatma Yogair Adhyatma Vid Brahmagatim Labhita. Swarnam Yata Gravasu. No, how's that go? No, that's it, low. Okay. Swarnam Yata Gravasu Hemaka. No. One more time, please. Swarnam Yata Gravasu Hemakara. Kshetreshu Yogaistab Abhigya Apnuyad. Kshetreshu Deheshu Tatatma Yoga. Adhyatma Vid Brahmagatim Labhita. Swarnam Yata Gravasu Hemakara. Kshetreshu Yogaistad Abhigya Apnuyat. Kshetreshu Deheshu Tatatma Yoga. Adhyatma Vid Brahmagatim Labhita. Swarnam Yata Gravasu Hemakara. Kshetreshu Yogaistarabhigya Apnuyat. Kshetreshu Deheshu Tatatma Yoga. Adhyatma Vid Brahmagatim Labhita. Everyone like to chant? Swarnam Yata Gravasu Hemakara. Did you chant already? Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay.
Charnam Jatha Gaveshu Hemakara Khetreshu Yogaistad Abhigga Apnuyat
Kshetreshu yogaistarviga apnuyat.
Khetreshu Deheshu Tathatma Yogai
Kshetreshu deheshu tatatma yogar.
Adhatma Vid Brahma Gatim Labeta.
Ajatma vidvama gatim labeta. Okay, word for word. Svarnam, gold. Yata, just as. Gravasu, in the stones of gold ore. Hemakaraha, the expert who knows about gold. Kshetreshu, in the gold mines. Yogai, by various processes. Tat abhigya, an expert who can understand where gold is. Apnuyat, very easily attains. Kshetreshu, within the material fields. Deheshu, the human bodies and all the rest of the 8,400,000 different bodily forms. Tata, similarly, Atma Yogai, by spiritual processes. Adhyatma Vit, one who is expert in understanding the distinction between spirit and matter. Brahmagatim, perfection in spiritual life. Labheta, may obtain. Translation, an expert geologist can understand where there is gold and by various processes can extract it from the gold ore. Similarly, a spiritually advanced person can understand how the spiritual particle exists within the body, and thus by cultivating spiritual knowledge he can attain perfection in spiritual life. However, as one who is not expert cannot understand where there is gold, a foolish person who has not cultivated spiritual knowledge cannot understand how the spirit exists within the body. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here is a very good example concerning spiritual understanding. Foolish rascals, including so-called jnanis, philosophers, and scientists, cannot understand the existence of the soul within the body because they are lacking in spiritual knowledge. The Vedas enjoin tad bigarnatam sagurun eva bigachet. To understand spiritual knowledge, one must approach a bona fide spiritual master. Unless one has been trained in geology, one cannot detect gold and stone. Similarly, unless one has been trained by a spiritual master, he cannot understand what is spirit and what is matter. Here it is said, Yogais tad abhigya. This indicates that one who has connected himself with spiritual knowledge can understand that there is a spiritual soul within the body. However, one who is in an animalistic conception of life and has no spiritual culture cannot understand. As an expert mineralogist or geologist can understand where there is gold and can then invest his money to dig there and chemically separate the gold from the ore, an expert spiritualist can understand where the soul is within matter. One who has not been trained cannot distinguish between gold and stone. Similarly, fools and rascals who have not learned from an expert spiritual master what is soul and what is matter cannot understand the existence of the soul within the body. To understand such knowledge, one must be trained in the mystic yoga system, or finally in the Bhakti yoga system, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 1855, Bhaktamam abhijanati. Unless one takes shelter of the Bhakti yoga process, one cannot understand the existence of the soul within the body. Therefore, Bhagavad Gita begins by teaching Dehinusmin yata dehe komaram yovaram jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyati. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body, from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. The self-realized soul is not bewildered by such a change. Bhagavad Gita 2.13. Thus, the first instruction is that one should understand that the soul is within the body and is transmigrating from one body to another. This is the beginning of spiritual knowledge. Any person who is not expert in understanding this science or is unwilling to understand it remains in the bodily conception of life or the animalistic conception of life as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyatma buddhi kunape tudatuke seva gokara. Every member of human society should clearly understand the instructions of Bhagavad Gita, for only in this way can one be spiritually elevated and automatically give up the false illusory knowledge by which one thinks, I am this body, and everything belonging to this body is mine. Aham mameti. This doggish conception should be rejected immediately. One should be prepared to understand the Spirit Soul and the Supreme Spirit God, who are eternally related. Thus one may return home back to Godhead, having solved all the problems of life. Amazing, huh? Solved all the problems of life. Excuse me. Just yesterday's vintage? Well, it was good enough for Mogalila, it was good enough for me. That's what I say. He gave a great class, maybe this will help me. Like that. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunminitam Nena Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Nena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svabhatandikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Mevacha Patitanam Pavani Bho Vaishnavi Bho Namo Namo Namaha. So by your good wishes and prayers, I'll say a few things. So Prabhupada begins, or the verse begins talking about geologists. It takes about at least 4 years to just get a degree in geology. You know that? That's his beginning. Now, to become an expert geologist, I don't know how long that takes. And it's interesting to note that when geologists try to find gold, less than 0.1% of their identifying a place actually yields anything. And of those, 10%, less than 10% are worth the endeavor, the cost of extracting the gold. So it's not an easy thing to find gold. That's why it's so rare. Right, it's very, very rare to find this gold. So one has to be expert, otherwise one misses everything. You know, there's another story, a true story. It has to do with diamonds. You know that story about fields of diamonds? I think it's in, maybe, you know, where's Temple University? It's in Philadelphia? Yeah. Temple University. The gentleman who started that, he had many different occupations, and he was a clergy also. And he recognized, or many, many young men, maybe women too at the time, but came to him, the story is, and asked him to help them get an education, but they had no money. So he, being a philanthropically inclined person, he decided to try to collect money and start a university for those who had little or no money. And he traveled all over the country. His last name was Templeton. He traveled all over the country lecturing, trying to raise money to start a university. And every time he spoke, he told a story, a true story about diamonds. It was about a gentleman who had a farm in South Africa. He was quite happy, just farming away, farming away, farming away. Then all of a sudden the news came that there was a diamond rush. You know, South Africa is famous for its diamonds, the good and the bad of the diamond industry. But at that time, I don't know, this 1800s or something, and he kept hearing about how many people are just becoming fabulously wealthy by diamond mining and this and that. So he decided to sell his farm and go mining diamonds. So he sold the farm to this young guy, this just gentleman, and left. And it's described that he actually died He died in a far-off area just trying to find diamonds, and he just passed away. Nothing ever came of it. Now, the gentleman who bought his farm, nice gentleman, he was, walking here and there on the property, and one day he saw there's something glittering in the little stream, and he picked it up. Thought, that's kind of interesting, this big blob of something, a stone, and he put it on his mantelpiece. He went around his business, and then some friend came, and he was entertaining him in his living room, and he noticed this thing on his mantle, and he said, do you know what that is? He said, no, they're all over the place on this property. They're just lying everywhere. He said, that's a diamond in the rough. He said, I got them everywhere. And that diamond mine, it actually was a diamond. Diamonds everywhere. And that was the largest diamond ever found in South Africa, and his mine became the most profitable diamond in all of South Africa. Now, the first guy, he didn't even know. He didn't know how to see a diamond in the rough. And he just went off and looking for diamonds, but his own property happened to be the greatest diamond mine in South Africa at the time. So the point, Templeton's point, is that all these young men and women who don't have an education, we have to educate them, because that's our real value is education and so on. So you have to have the eyes to see, or you miss it all. So that's the example given here, is the geologist knows where to find gold. In the same way, if one wants to understand the soul and God, one has to approach a spiritual master. There's no way around it. Now, that's unpopular today. Today, the idea is that everyone makes up their own everything. Their own idea about how to be happy in the material world, their own idea about spirituality. And it's free game in spirituality because they don't understand it's a science. It's as far as they know, it's an unexplored territory. And you just make up your own spiritual idea of life. Take a little bit from this, take a little bit from that. What's it called? Eclectic approach. And you form your own idea of spirituality. Well, the question is, though, if you could figure it all out and understand what the truth is, why are you rotting in this material world? Why are you suffering so much? So doesn't anyone ask that question? It's just like people try to fix their own car and they make it worse. I think I can fix this. Or one of the old jokes about the TV set, right? They bang the TV and smack it. It's like, why don't you just call someone who knows how to fix it? No, I'll do it. Like men are very stubborn, right? They say, I'll do it, fix this, fix. It's worse than ever. You call someone who knows what they're doing. And there's that saying, if all else fails, read the instructions, right? If all else fails, why don't you go back and get the instruction book? It'll tell you what to do. So spiritual life is a science. It's the greatest of sciences. So one has to approach one who knows the difference between matter and spirit. Otherwise, one will never understand spirituality. I'll give a little example. Is it? Yeah. Today's Monday. Sunday. Yesterday. Boy, I lose track. I have so many of them. I was doing a puja at someone's house. And then afterwards was sitting there, and a few of us were talking. These people I've known for decades and decades and so on. And they're talking about during the puja, hearing the different mantras, how nice it is. It gives you a nice sense of peace and so on. And this one woman was saying that her husband, a nice gentleman, he's actually a retired professor from SDSU. And his specialty is terrorism. In fact, when 9/11 happened, he was on TV. They were interviewing him and so on. So that's what he taught for many years, one of his subjects of terrorism. In fact, he was in the Naxalites in Bengal. He told me, Naxalites, you hear of these? The communists, right? And they were very, very violent. In fact, they even threatened Srila Prabhupada. And fly or die. And he said he was in the Naxalites and everything was going pretty good until they asked him to kill some people. He glooped. He couldn't take it. He said, I'm not killing anyone. But so he has a background in terrorism. But anyways, his wife was sitting there and said, oh, my husband, Deepak, he likes listening to so-and-so on podcasts and all that. And a professor or something like that who speaks about spirituality. So right off for me, the lights went off like, uh-oh, you know. So since when is being a professor a qualification for speaking about spirituality? And she was making the point that he was giving this whole lecture on Om, this talk about Om, and how Om, that sound vibration, resonates with the different cells in the body and the different atoms and cells. And that's why when you hear Om, you feel very, very peaceful. So in other words, a completely material idea about what Om is. So guess who corrected them? That whole talk about Satchidananda and Brahman, Paramatma, and what Om represents, and how the sound vibration Om gives you a sense of eternity and so on. And I said that's why you feel that, is you get a little something from that spiritual vibration, but it's a spiritual vibration. So set it right. But the point is, unless one has a spiritual authority, they see everything in terms of matter. That's the problem. Just like Prabhupada is saying here, animalistic conception of life. The animals cannot understand the difference between matter and spirit. They just can't do it. Now some people say, how do you know? You ever get that one? How do you know the dog isn't spiritually evolved? Or the cat? Or the worm? How do we know? By their activities. Like that. And even, but no, sometimes they can be. Little dogs chanting Hare Krishna, and that's an exception, but in general, we know they don't. The reason they bring this up is they have no idea what spirituality is. Like that. How do you know the dog's not a car mechanic? How do you know your dog can't fix your car?
We asked him to.
He didn't do a thing. He just rolled over and barked at you. Because they don't manifest any symptoms of a car mechanic. So the reason we know that dogs and cats aren't involved, can't appreciate or cultivate spirituality, they're not doing anything that indicates that they can do it. It's very simple. Very simple. So in Bhagavad Gita, this point is brought up in the 15th chapter about seeing and not seeing. Beginning which I'll read the text, translations. Krishna is explaining exactly what's going on here. He says, the living entity in the material world, the previous verse, 15:7, is the famous verse, Mamaivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, that spirit soul. But then he says, 8, the living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Now, for someone with the bodily concept of life, that's a very big leap of faith. Because they're thinking, I am this body, and now you're saying I'm not, and I'm moving to another body. Text 9, the living entity, thus taking another gross body, attains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind, and thus he enjoys a particular set of sense objects. Here it goes. 10, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature, but those whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Pashyati jnana chakshusha. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. Okay. So right there in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is pointing this out, that it's a matter of cultivating spiritual knowledge, and one has to approach a spiritual master. Tadvidhi pranipatena paripashnena sevaya. If you want to know the truth, Krishna says, it's very simple. Find someone who knows it. Find someone who knows it. Guessing is not the way. Guessing will get us nowhere. It's a waste of time. Complete waste of time. Complete waste of time. Like that. And those who just want to guess and guess and guess and guess, it means they must not be very serious about spiritual life. Right? Not spirit. If you want to learn anything, you gotta go find someone who knows. Find a teacher, whatever. You learn anything. Right? If you want to learn how to cook, what do? The soul's gone. Soul's gone. He left, how many weeks ago did you leave? 3 weeks ago. So you have to go find him somewhere. He's not here anymore. Okay? Like that. You find someone who knows how to. Very, very simple. Just find someone and learn. And that's a spiritual master. And spiritual master has his qualifications. The disciple has the qualifications. That's the verse there. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariparashnena sevaya. That one has to inquire submissively and render service, like that. There's a way to get that knowledge from the spiritual master. One has to approach properly and take instruction and to be very, very, very humble. It was a wonderful class in Mayapur by drawing the blank right now. The Happiness book, Devamrita Swami, when we were there. And started talking about the purport had to do with taking instruction, taking good instruction. Then he started talking about being a guru, and he said, sometimes the disciples don't want to take instruction. They just don't want to take it. And he said, Guruji, I just want to have a picture of you on my altar, that's all. That's all I want to do, just have a picture. But this, giving me instruction, that's creating some anxiety for me. I don't like that anxiety. So if your guru gives you instruction, it creates anxiety. No, I don't want that. I just wanted your picture on my altar. So sometimes we don't want to hear it. But the spiritual master, his business is to give instruction and teach us how to become Krishna conscious and how to execute our devotional service day in and day out. And, to the extent we accept that, we make rapid advancement in Krishna consciousness. To the extent we say, I just want the picture, I just want the picture. I just don't want to deal with that. And because of the time, I'll end with one thing. We can elaborate a little bit, but it's also something I heard in a recent book I was reading about advancing in Krishna consciousness and association. Because there's 3 kinds of devotees we can associate with. Those who are more advanced than us, our spiritual master and advanced. Those who are less advanced than us, and we show them some kindness and mercy and preach to them. And those on pretty much the same level. There may be a little, but it's pretty much our prabhus, Now, Radhanath Maharaj gave a formula for how much you should associate with those more advanced than you, how much you should associate of your time you should associate with those who are less advanced than you, and how much of your time should be with those on the same level. Okay, want to do some. Who wants to guess about those more advanced than us? Percentage. 20%. Okay, how about those less than us? 20? So we got some 20s going. And those on the same level? Look, you guys heard this already. Huh? Oh, so you already heard this. Yeah, 60%, same level, 20 and 20. Why is that? They knew. They heard it. They heard this verse. They heard this point before. That's good. The reason given is we make most of our advancement with those who are pretty much on the same level. That's our day-to-day, serving shoulder to shoulder, dealing with each other's false egos, having to be humble, do our service. Those are the ones who tell us, wash the pots, clean the bathroom, get out on Sankirtan, wake up, you're sleeping during japa, all that kind of stuff. Or together, nice, not as negative, but ecstatic kirtans together, taking prasadam together, preaching together. That's where most of our life is, and those are the big challenges are. If we surround ourselves most of the time with those who are less advanced than us, we start having an inflated ego possibility. Oh, I'm very advanced, I'm teaching them, I'm helping them, look at me, I'm Guruji, right? And those who are more advanced, you shouldn't have too much association, then you become familiar. You have to be careful of that. So it's 20, 20, 60. So, because in that association of those who we're performing our day-to-day devotional service with, that's where we're executing the orders of our spiritual masters, and that's the testing ground, like that. So, and it says here, Prabhupada calls it a doggish conception, should be rejected immediately. Now, it's nothing against dogs. It's just that animals don't have any spiritual vision. They just don't. That's why the soul has a dog body. Because he just wants to be a dog. Leave me alone, I just want to be a dog. So Krishna says, okay, there you go. What kind of dog would you like to be? What kind of dog would you like to be? If you had to be a dog, what would you like to be? I'm asking you. Don't worry, I'm not going to turn, it's not going to be like Mushika Bhava or something. I'm not going to turn you into a dog right here in Bhagavatam class. Oh, Corky, right? So, Corky, nice dog. Corky, those little dogs, like, okay. Looks like a loaf of bread, okay. So, a dog's a dog. Just wants to be a dog. Dog doesn't want to be anything else. Just let me be a dog, right? And that's true with, practically speaking, 8,400,000 different species of life. You're there because you want to be that. But for the rare soul, what is that? Konya Bhagavan Jeev, the very rare, fortunate soul, all of a sudden wakes up. Hey, I'm not a, well, you'd wake up in the human form of life. Dog's not going to wake up one morning and go, I don't want to be a dog anymore. It's not going to happen. But the human form of life is like, wait a second. This is not, it's not happening anymore. There must be something more. I'm not this body, I'm something else. And this inquiry starts. And by that's Krishna in the heart giving impetus, and by the grace of Krishna one gets Guru, and by the grace of Guru one gets Krishna. So it's the journey has begun, and we have to stay on it. And it all comes about by Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada, Yasya Prasada Nagati Katopi. We sing that every morning. What does it mean?
Oh, can you use the microphone?
Second line. I hear a lot of Yasya Prasada Nagati Gatopi.
Okay.
Which means by his mercy, one cannot make any advancement. Unless you say Yasya, it's
Yasya.
up prasad, up prasad.
Okay.
Those Sunday rules make a lot of difference.
Okay. I guess you just let the cat out of the bag. Go ahead, you want to say? No, I'm asking you quickly. Just
by pleasing the spiritual master, Krishna is pleased, and if the spiritual master is not pleased, you don't attain the ultimate goal. Or
yeah. In other words, that's the key. Just like a key, so many doors. The key opens the door. Without the key, just banging on it, nothing's happening. But you just put the key in there, and presto, the door opens. So the whole door of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says at the very end here, solving all the problems of life. The key is pleasing the spiritual master. So that's why the devotee is always thinking throughout the day, Tri Sandhyam. That means 3 times. It's chanting your Gayatri, but all day long, the devotee is thinking, how can I please my spiritual master? And Prabhupada brought that over and over and over again. He was always thinking, how could I please my spiritual master? How could I? And he quoted that commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on the verse in the Gita. The disciple's only goal in life is to please the spiritual master. So to the extent one's always thinking like that, the spiritual life, that's spiritual life. It's nothing else. Everything else is just not fluff, but it's dependent upon that one principle. And if that's not there, everything else is just, it's not going to bring us the desired goal. So that's a point that has to be reiterated, and we have to be reminded day in and day out. The pleasure of our guru and gurus is that's the key. That will open all the doors. If we feel like we're outside the door of Krishna consciousness for some reason, well, the key is just trying to do something to the best of our ability to please our spiritual master. If you're not sure what that is, ask Balaram, who's head of the ashram. Okay. So we can end here. Any questions or comments? Yes.
I had a question about the association, the percentage thing. if we spend 100% of our time associating, it's just, how do we spend our time, like, when we're alone? Like, what should we do? Or, like, how much time should we spend alone? Instead of, like, because we don't always have association of others. Sometimes we're just...
Well, there will be times when you can say you're alone, you're sleeping, you're in the shower, passing a stool, right? But also sometimes you do a service alone. You're in the kitchen cooking the offering alone, and this and that. It's not like, oh no, I got to get someone in here with me, you know? So it's just in the natural course of the day, there are times when you're alone. You don't have to like have a chart. It's like, oh, I'm getting pretty low on this 60% here. I better drag someone in here, you know, because that formula, it means in our day-to-day activities, when there is interaction, and there's a lot of that, you know, especially living in the ashram, because we're busy, we have things to do. So when we have things to do, when there's interaction, that's the formula. When there's interaction between the devotees, which is a natural course of the day, that's the formula which is suggested. Does that answer your question? Actually, the good point you brought up, though, if one thinks that they can become Krishna conscious, is this Prabhupada's quote? One thinks they can become Krishna conscious out of the association of the devotees. Is it hallucination, Prabhupada said? So one has to be careful about being too much of a loner. Because the example given is Bharat Maharaj. Now, if he had someone with him, like you, he said, hey, Maharaj, I think you're a little too affectionate to that deer, right? Bharat Maharaj, he kind of fell in my eyes. He said, Maharaj, you're playing with the deer. You're supposed to be like offering artik and doing your meditation. You know, he just had one devotee there to go, Maharaj, I don't think this is right. We would have a different story. But he was all by himself, and that's an example given. One has to be very careful to always try to stay in the association of nice devotees. Anything else?
Sorry, I get a lot of these, but I think it's important. This verse, of course, this is a verse quoted from the Bhagavad Gita, as it is. And it's been revised in its important revisions. First of all, the embodied soul continuously passes, not continually. Continually means we continually come to Bhagavatam class, regularly. Okay. It doesn't mean continuous. Okay. Continually is different. So the first thing is continuously, but more importantly, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes in another body at death. The sober person is not bewildered by such a change. The dhiras. Now the importance is, I know when I read this, until the second edition came out, so we're talking 72, the Macmillan came out, and then until 83 it came out, and Jayad Vaidama had. Now the difference is that, how can you read that and not think that self-realized soul is the one who's passed into another body? Didn't you think that? When I first read that, that's what I always thought. I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah, because it's talking about the soul, the embodied soul. Mm-hmm. But it's not. It's talking about Arjuna. Arjuna is the one who has to be dhira and not to be upset by all of this changing of the body. In other words, that he's trying to get Arjuna. So it's a very important distinction there. And Prabhupada said the sober person. Somehow or other, the self-realized soul came in from the first editor, maybe consulting another Gita or whatever. So we're going to try to get all of these quoted verses revised, because many of them they're from the Gita, and so this one, I just wanted to point that out, because each word is so important. The different connotation is there. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. For a jiva ascending from the lower species, is there a specific body they take before the human body? I heard maybe a cow. Is that true? Okay.
Sometimes it's said that one enters the mode of goodness through a cow body, one enters the mode of passion through a lion body, and one enters the mode of ignorance from a monkey body. But that's not with every single soul. Depending on our karma we've created, we go down and we come back up. You may bounce just 1 or 2 lifetimes and come back. You may hit bottom like a few million births, then work your way back up. So those are different things. That's the general rule, but I've also heard that said about those 3 animals. Like that. Because, yeah, I mean, we need a lot more monkeys because a lot of people taking birth in the mode of ignorance, so they must be coming from somewhere else also. You had a question or comment, Prabhu?
Yeah, thank you so much for the nice lecture. I also wanted to ask about that formula, because in Krishna consciousness we like to calculate how many rounds we chant, how many obeisances we offer, and things like that. So if we speak about 60, 20, 20, and we're supposed to be also calculating that, or there's more of a natural kind of understanding how to follow that formula. And if there is, what should it be? Like, how do we, sometimes we might have a feeling that we're not getting enough association with equals or with seniors. What's the most natural thing to understand?
You're absolutely right. You have to think about it. You're absolutely right. You have to think about it. In other words, in the context of my reading this, it was a warning for devotees who are in the position of spiritual masters or sannyasis, that they may be always dealing with those who are less advanced, and no one's checking your Krishna consciousness. And you're seen as a very, very advanced person, and you start thinking, yeah, I'm a very advanced person. That's the downside. One has to be careful. One has to be very careful. So you're right. You have to calculate it that, as the days and months and years go by, am I getting good association? And always to find those devotees who are on a similar level with me in that sangha. That's where I'll be dealing with most of my anarthas, and also find my enthusiasm. So one has to make sure they have that kind of association in Krishna consciousness, And on the other side also, something like if you're always associating with those who are more advanced than you, then you also can run into some difficulty, familiarity. So one has to be careful there also. Hope that helps.
I just find it very difficult to follow that formula.
Why? Because you're so humble, you think everyone here is more advanced than you?
No, just he's more advanced.
Oh, it's the other one. You think everyone's less advanced than you,
Not at all.
and everyone's glorifying you.
It's it's difficult to follow it because, with 60, 20, 20, it's a bit impractical.
It's 20, 60, 20.
Association in terms of how it's being defined.
Yeah.
It's 20, 60, 20. 20, 60.
Yeah.
Right. Well, do the best you can. Maybe like 15. You do the best. The point being, the bulk. The main point of that formula is the bulk. And just think about it, the bulk of our advancement, dealing with anarthas or being enlivened, will come from associating with those who are on a pretty similar level, because that's our day-to-day life in the ashram and in Krishna consciousness. That's where things are going to be. I've said it a few times. That's where it's going to happen, like that. Okay, so we should end here. Oh, question. Hare Krishna. Go ahead.
Nice class. My question is, you mentioned 60, 20, 20. So the preaching, or somebody's new and we spend so much time explaining and all. You answered already part of my question just now, but I'm still confused about if somebody's, like I said, a new devotee or new people come and we spend time like teaching or talking about them, even though we are not qualified, but we think, okay, we have to preach and send Prabhupada message, and new people we spend so much. So that is not good,
No, the point is that not only is it good, it's essential that we bring other people to Krishna consciousness and help them and preach to them, but it shouldn't be the majority of our time. And even that endeavor for preaching is usually done in the association of other devotees. So you're getting that association of devotees, you're working together on for preaching to other people. But if most of the time we are preaching to those who are less advanced than us, who's going to help us deal with our anartas, right? Who's going to help us? They're not going to tell us, hey, you're in Maya. They might. You know, some are pretty straightforward. You know, who do you think you are telling me how to do this? And as a Bhakti director for 8 years, I got it a few times from people. Who the hell do you think you are telling me to, you know, get up or this or that? Okay, all right, Krishna. You got to be really humble. You do have to be humble, but the point being that it can't be the majority of our time. And also, if it is preaching, we're usually doing it with someone else. You know, we're working with other devotees, helping other, you know, and so on. But that's the downfall. If it's all the time just with those who are less advanced, then who's going to point out our things we have to work on? Right? And if you get attached to that, that's a problem. Right? This is great. No one's telling me what to do, and everyone thinks I'm really Krishna conscious. Some red lights should go off real fast. Okay, so we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
And Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Other question from here, if you don't mind. Okay. So the same level, they are, you know, nowadays nobody says like directly don't do this. They are diplomatic, or they think that they are doing the Vaishnava others. Nobody nowadays say directly that don't do that. And so we need more devotees who can tell us that you are doing wrong, or be direct or something like that. So that's also.
Well, I think that's a pretty absolute statement. Nobody's telling anyone to do this or that. So I don't think that's necessarily true, but I know what you're saying, that people today seem to have, the generation today has a very, very thin shell like that, and very soft egos. And they get easily offended because we're all very much obsessed with our own sense of self-worth. It's part of the, I don't even call it the me generation anymore. Is there another name for it now? I don't know what it is, but it's like I, me, and mine generation or something like that. So one has to become expert in how they preach, but one should not water anything down and just, you know, be very, very humble. But yeah, it's part of being expert in preaching, and that's where the point being made is that in the association of those on an equal level, it helps us deal with our false ego. So
thank you so much.
If I offended anyone, I'm sorry. If I got a little too heavy with anyone during class, I do apologize. Okay, but you deserved it. Okay, Hare Krishna. All glories to Prabhupada.